Welcome, I'm Mark Henry and I'm your co-host today, and I'm joined today with Stewart Willis, the managing partner of Asset Preservation and Tax Retirement Services. I am so excited to be on television with you today.
Well, thanks for joining me, Mark. Appreciate
Yeah,
you.
happy to. And so you've got such an interesting practice. You know, I do these shows around the country and I speak to other advisors, but I was so excited to be on here with you today because your practice is just totally, maybe not totally, but it just seems so different than the traditional advisory relationship that people have with, let's say, their big box retail firm. You know, when I think about, so you do tax services along with the financial planning, is that correct?
Yeah, we've tried to create a place where people can take care of all of their financial services in one location. Obviously, we're not doing any banking, but
Sure.
we have a full tax office, a tax prep office, a tax planning division as well.
Sure.
We also handle estate planning, as well as, of course, the financial planning, portfolio management.
Which you're known for.
Absolutely.
Right, but that's what makes you so different. When I think about one of the biggest challenges that pre-retirees and retirees are going to face, would you agree that taxation has to be at the highest part of the list?
In my opinion, it's a top 10 issue, no question about it. Absolutely.
Top 10.
Yeah, absolutely. So oftentimes what happens is that people don't consider taxes when they do their planning, because here's what happens. When you start looking at tax issues like Roth conversion and so forth, what happens is you go to the advisor, you say, hey, I've heard about, Roth conversion. Does it make sense? Well, they'll say, hey, you know what, you should probably talk to your tax guy. And then your tax guy says, talk to your financial guy. And then that conversation never happens because the right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing. And, people end up realizing that if they have their CPA talk to their tax person, the CPA is going to charge a couple $100 an hour to have that conversation. And people just stay away from it. The nice thing is we've provided an environment where people can have that conversation easily in one place.
See, to me, that's what I think about a financial plan, which is what so many people are missing. I think about, we've talked about this before, you and I have off the air, when we said, a statement, their 401 statement, their brokerage account statement, their IRA statement. That's not a financial plan. When you said, well, Mark, when I ask people, what is your current plan? Sometimes they'll just bring out statements.
Yeah.
And you go, yeah, that's not a plan. Those are statements. And I love how you said, and what's funny is they're not even accurate. And I said, I remember saying to you, Stewart, what do you mean they're not accurate? You said, Mark, if the markets have been open since those statements were printed, they're no longer accurate. And I thought, wow, so how could you have a actual retirement plan, like something as important as retirement, but not include things like inflation and taxation into that plan?
Yeah, that's a critical part of the cash flow modeling we do in our plans. So what we do is we like to plan out for the next 20 or 30 years, whatever your life expectancy is.
Okay.
And we add inflation, we add, cost of living changes, we add expected rates of return, and also life events that happen. What if you're planning that wedding for your daughter or whatever? A lot of people don't think about those big things they may need, or the air conditioner every 12 years. I know it sounds silly and trivial, but it's huge at the end of the day. It's important to calculate those things, because what we don't want to do is see people have to build up debt in retirement to pay for those things.
Right, that just can't happen.
Can't happen.
And the other thing that struck me that was so different about your practice and what I see, and I hear this common theme across the country when I speak to people, they say, well, we don't feel like we have a partner in retirement. But you're not a commission-based advisor, in that when you manage money, you're fee-based. Is that right?
That's right. We are a true fiduciary. We're not allowed to receive any of those commissions from securities companies. So if we're looking at two different specific investments, two different funds, for example, if one of them is 1.5% and the other one is 0.14%, why wouldn't we pick the 0.14% if they do exactly the same thing?
It's a good question.
The reason a lot of other people do it differently is because they have that back-end relationship with those fund companies. And oftentimes, the person who sells the more expensive fund, sometimes there's a trip waiting for them to the Bahamas if they produce well. And we're, as a fiduciary, not allowed to receive any of that compensation. So that whenever we make a transaction, that it is purely for the client's benefit.
See, when I think about what someone would want in retirement, I want a maybe the right word would be a confident financial future. And how do you achieve that without a financial plan?
You know what? People need a certainty. They need
They
need to know, to a reasonable degree of certainty that they are going to succeed. And I had a client the other day, 83 years old, came in from the TV show, and he's got about $1.5 million saved, and he just remarried a couple years ago after he lost his wife.
Oh, that's sad.
But he just said, "Look, I want to enjoy life, but I don't want to run out of money." And he's like, "I'm more concerned about my wife." But I want to enjoy the last years I have. And the problem, and this is an extreme case because he's 83, but imagine the people that are 60 years old, right? What we did for this client is we cash flowed it out, and we said, if you make negative 1.2% for the remainder of your life, you will still leave $700,000.
Right.
To your kids after your wife's gone. Not just you're gone, but your wife.
Negative return.
Yeah. So we added negative return. And so basically the answer is, to him, if you don't screw this up,
right,
you're going to be fine.
Wow. And how refreshing was that for him? But not at 83. How about at 63? I think about like people that retired, let's say, December of last year.
Yeah.
And that was one of the best markets. You told me 19 was like a heck of a year for your firm, right?
Tremendous.
Incredible returns.
Tremendous.
So now all of a sudden you retire without a financial plan. You head into January and you're probably thinking, boy, this is a great time to retire. And then COVID hit.
COVID hits. Yeah, the reality is the nice thing about our tactical approach to money management is we're not trying to beat the market on the way up. We're trying not to lose on the way down. That's why
I like that.
Yeah, that's why a lot of our portfolios are designed with those specific drawdown limits in mind. Most advisors talk about what they're going to make you. They never ask you what you're willing to lose, right? And so all of our portfolios on the algorithm tactical side are basically set up to make sure that they're 7, 10, 13, and 16%. What are your limits? And everyone's answer is different.
Sure it is.
Right? And it's okay.
Personal to them. It's their money.
Everyone has a different, risk tolerance level. Remember, there's two emotions that guide you when you invest. There's fear and there's greed. And the fear side just says, I'm going to lose it all. I don't want to be invested. The greedy side says, no, I'm going to get rich. Leave it. Let it ride. Let it ride. And I think a balance in there is important. But what's more important is to respect the client's emotions when it comes to investing, because what you don't want is for people to pull out at the wrong time because they're in too risky of a position.
I think sometimes they're forced to make decisions maybe they know in their heart they shouldn't be making, but they're forced to do it because they didn't have an advisor like yourself. They didn't have a financial plan to help guide them to make the right decisions. I want to stay on this topic, but unfortunately, Randy's already talked to Mayor. We've got to go to a commercial break, but I want to make sure I got this right. We're going to make an offer right now. We're going to put the number up there for people to call in, but I want to make sure I got this right. I know you're the managing partner of your firm, and it's a big firm, but you are personally willing to meet with the callers that call in and do an actual financial review, not agreeing to accept them as a client, but you'll sit down with them personally and do a financial review. Did I get that correct?
Absolutely. I'm going to handle it all myself. I will meet with anybody who calls in. And
this is amazing. You just don't realize how special that makes you. For the viewing audience, now is the time to do this. 833-652-7829. And here's what you're calling in for: an opportunity to sit down and get a second opinion, get a financial review, get that financial plan that you're missing. This is a $1,500 value at least. And Stewart's willing to give this away absolutely complimentary with no obligations for the next 10 callers that call in now. You do have to do one thing. You're going to have to get off the couch and dial this number, 833-652-7829. What an amazing opportunity. Stay tuned on the Asset Preservation Hour. We've got more coming up next.
What happens oftentimes is we'll run into clients or potential clients that have saved all this money, but they're 75, 80 years old. They've got this big pile of money, but they're not enjoying retirement because they're so worried about running out of money that they never actually get to enjoy their life's work. And so to me, it's really rewarding to be able to create a plan so that these people can have a great time in retirement, knowing that they're not going to run out, that they're going to be fine. I think it brings a smile to their face.
we get a lot of different people at a lot of different stages in their lives. And what we're able to do is, for some folks, it's able to tell them that you're on track. Keep doing what you're doing, and 15 years from now, you'll be retired and enjoying life the way you want it to be. For some people, it's people coming in and they're 3 to 5 years away from retirement, and you're able to tell them that, 5 years, 3 years, tomorrow, you're ready to go.
We are a complete shop. We handle estate planning, taxes, financial planning. We do a really in-depth cash flow analysis that is way more detailed than you'll see in the market.
Everything all in one spot, with the left hand always knowing what the right hand's doing. Because it's not just about the investments, but how's that going to affect your taxes? It's not where are you going to be 5 years from now, 15 years from now. And it's that back and forth full view of what the clients, not only today, but tomorrow and their legacy down the road is going to be, that really sets us apart.
Welcome back. I'm Mark Henry, and I'm joined today, of course, with Stewart Willis, the managing partner of Asset Preservation and Tax Planning Services. Stewart, thanks again for having me on. This is flying by, but for the viewing audience that's been watching and the ones that just turned in, I want to recap again what makes your firm so special. And it is special because it's just different than that big box retail advisory firm where they have to do these cookie cutter plans and everybody's in a box and they have to do what's in that box. Being an independent fiduciary allows you, like the world, I guess, is your playground. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So, oftentimes big box advisors are prohibited by their firm from having any conversation about tax, for example.
Yeah.
They're worried about the liability of it.
Sure.
And so forth, which is why we have a full-time year-round tax staff to handle those questions
Sure.
internally. So it makes it really easy to handle all those conversations. It's why we've had the same 15-year relationship with the same exact attorney, for that entire time when it comes to estate planning, when people are setting up trusts and wills and so forth.
And the idea that you could have retirement is so much more than just the financial piece. And that's what I love about your firm, because you're not only doing not as a stockbroker, not as a commission-based stockbroker, but as a fee-based advisor, a fiduciary, you're doing the management part, but then you're also adding in what everybody needs, which is the tax planning services. I'm sure you don't prepare everybody's taxes. If they want you to, you could, you said, but everybody needs the tax planning part.
Absolutely. So some of our clients love their existing CPA or tax preparer.
Okay.
They've had the same relationship
Sure.
forever. All we need to do for those clients is bring in the final product. Bring in your prepared tax return.
Okay.
We enter that into the software as if we prepared it ourselves.
Okay.
And then we can add all of those additional variables. So if clients want to talk about Roth conversion in their tax plan,
Which they should be, most likely.
well, or if I suggest, hey, you know what, we really need to have this conversation, we can create scenarios where we say, what if we do a $50,000 or $100,000 or $200,000 or $500,000 conversion this year? And the reality is this: oftentimes the things you think that don't make any sense make the most sense long term. And you have to let go of normal convention and say, doesn't ever make sense to pay, 30% taxes. Well, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. We just want to cash flow it out for the next 20 years and see what the implications are, not just a year from now,
Sure.
but forever. We're in the most efficient tax window in history right now for most of America.
Wow.
And if you don't take advantage of where we are in the tax code now, because listen, when the election comes, we don't know what's going to happen at this point.
We don't.
But if things change dramatically, most people believe that taxes are going to go up, right? Because somebody's got to pay for all the stimulus.
All the CARES Acts, all these things that we've done.
It's billions of dollars that are going onto the ledger of the
Sure.
of the Treasury. Somebody needs to pay for it.
Right.
And people believe
But
that's
I love your message, though, because it's not a message of fear, because you're giving them an opportunity. This is a message of hope, because there is a window, as you said, for them to actually make changes today that may not be available 18 months from now.
Well, they certainly won't be as efficient,
Right.
in the future.
Right. Right.
You can do it, but right now I think we have a big discount, right? And for you not to take advantage of that fire sale on taxes now, you're missing out.
It's just a message of hope. It's a way it's helping to ensure your future by planning today for the inevitable that's coming tomorrow.
Yeah, and oftentimes, we're seeing advisors that know that, Roth conversion makes sense. But just think about this. What if this advisor has a $100 million block of business and they're working for one of the big box firms, they have their manager, and they say, I've got $100 million in total IRA accounts. And I think it makes sense for all of them to convert. And let's understand that they would have to pay 22% tax. All of a sudden, that $100 million block of business could turn into $78 million. They just gave themselves a 22% fee cut. And how do you explain that to the boss, right? A lot of these places...
So that's why they're not doing it.
Well, I think it's a consideration. I think oftentimes these advisors that have to perform, they have to grow their business or the manager's going to get upset, that could be one of those weighing factors. It's a substantial impact to their block of business, and sometimes you have to understand how people get paid in order to understand what decisions they make.
And that transparency was one of the things I wanted to talk about, because in your firm, because of the way you work, you were telling me how clear it is how you get paid. Like, you actually show them exactly how you will be compensated. And I have to tell you, some people want to avoid that conversation, and you said you run to that conversation.
Absolutely. Like I said, you have to understand how people get paid in order to understand their motivation. And quite honestly, sometimes the first time that somebody sees a bill for, investment services, they say, oh man, I'm not used to seeing that. Well, yes, because it's been hidden from you for the last decade.
I'd rather see it. I want to know what I'm paying and what am I getting for that.
Some people like to be ostriches. Other people like to, you have to, if you're in a boxing match and you're fighting, you want to look your opponent in the eye so you see the punches that are coming. Right? If you're hiding from it, you're still going to get beat up, but you're just not going to see them coming.
Wow, what a great analogy. Or maybe it isn't. I'm not really sure.
I just made that up on the fly, but it was.
I love it though. I love it. We definitely don't have a scripted show, and that's what I love about you, because you're real. And that's when I think about what I would want to choose in an advisor, I want someone that's going to tell me the facts. Show it to me, lay it out. And that's what I love, because you said everything you do, you transition into written financial plans. That's what I love, because that's what seems like is missing in our industry as a whole. People, they have statements. They don't have written financial plans. They don't have tax plans.
Yeah, and often those statements are wrong, right? They're no longer accurate. Why? Because the markets are changing. So if you have a statement from a quarter ago, I mean, the market's changed. It's in flux.
It seems like the volatility in this market we're in now, if you have a statement from a few hours ago, it's not accurate.
We're in crazy times right now.
But you're still thriving.
No doubt, because you know what? It's because we have that roadmap. Our clients know where they're at, they know where they need to be, and so long as we stay within these certain risk parameters and volatility parameters, they're going to be fine.
Well, I got to tell you, they're already talking to me. They're saying we got to go to another commercial break. And I know I'm repeating myself, but I just want to make sure I'm saying this accurately for the viewing audience. We're going to accept the next 10 callers, and you personally, you're not going to hand them off to one of your sub-advisors. You're personally going to sit with them and discuss their current financial plan, what they're doing, and where it's taking them. You'll do this review personally. Is that correct?
100%.
Unbelievable. This is an amazing opportunity. The number for you to call right now, and again, the number to call right now, 833-652-7829. Again, that number, 833-652-7829. And here's what you're calling in for. Stewart has agreed to take the next 10 callers and sit with you and build your own financial plan to talk about your personal situation, not a cookie cutter plan, your personal situation. It doesn't mean you're going to change advisors. It means you're going to understand what you're doing and where what you're doing is going to take you, and then you can look at changes if they're necessary. This is an amazing opportunity. It's at least a $1,500 value, and he's giving it away absolutely complimentary with no obligation starting right now for the next 10 callers. And that number again, 833-652-7829. This is an amazing show, and we've got more coming right up next here with Stewart Willis.
As a good saver, you've been putting away money during your working years. Studies find that the biggest fear of retirees is running out of money. Market volatility isn't just the downward movement of stock prices, it's the size and frequency of change. The more dramatic the ups and downs, the higher the volatility. This can put savers who are newly retired or a few years away from being retired at greater risk. Today's generation of retirees is not receiving traditional pensions as our parents or grandparents did. Instead, we have retirement accounts such as 401ks or 403bs. These accounts typically expose your money to market risk. The last thing you want right before retirement is to lose a portion of the money you need for income. But how do you turn these accounts into a retirement income? Is it safe to keep all your retirement money sitting in the stock market? The last thing you want is to lose a portion of the money you need for income due to market loss. By working with a financial professional, you can learn how to turn a portion of your savings into an income stream for life and income for the life of your spouse if you're married. We all have moments in our lives when we wish we had taken action sooner. Don't let procrastination reign on your retirement parade. Act now before it's too late. Please call our office to set up your no-cost, no-obligation retirement income review today.
Welcome back. I'm Mark Henry, and of course I'm joined with Managing Partner of Asset Preservation Tax and Retirement Services, Stewart Willis, and this has been a great show.
Thanks, Mark.
I've loved it, and I hope the viewing audience has, because you've got such a message of hope. And that's what I love. It's scary times right now, and for a lot of reasons, whether it's the viruses or elections or this or that, there's so much stuff we can worry about. But I love it when you said that you didn't believe we were designed to worry. And while you said a financial plan can't remove all worry, it can put it in its proper place. The financial plan gives you that, what did you say, confidence?
Yeah, it's that certainty to know that you're on the right track.
I love that. I love that. And if they're not on the right track, when would you want to know that? Sooner or later? Yeah. I'd want to know sooner. If I'm not on the right track, I want to know now.
Yep, it's, that certainty, that confidence that you're on the right track really allows you to enjoy life, to really, just squeeze that nectar out of life and enjoy it to the best.
Well, why did people work 30 years, 35 years, and I know how hard, all the ups and downs, to finally now have these golden years? I don't know why they call it that. I think it's a terrible name. But to have all this, to accumulate this wealth, but then have to spend their time worrying about it. How can that be a proper retirement?
Yeah, I mean, we try to remove that worry.
I love that.
And I think that certainty, that confidence that you're on the right track is really important. But that can only be achieved with a plan, right? So our cash flow modeling shows you when you're on track and when you veer off. And remember, we try to get together at least once a quarter to make sure that you stay on track. A lot of these bigger advisors will say, hey, you know what? We don't need to meet.
You're fine.
Yeah.
Stay the course. You're good.
Looks good. Quick.
Stewart, I'm down. What happened?
Quarterly review isn't a 2-second phone call. It's a meeting in person or on
I love that.
Or if Zoom if you have to right now during the COVID. But you need to make sure that you find an advisor that you can communicate with, that you actually like. Because if you're resenting the advisor and it's a weird relationship, it's just not going to work. And I always say, when people come in, it's like dating. We're trying to feel each other out to see if it's even a good chemistry between us, because
I love that. I love that. I think about, and I want you to actually describe what that feels like to come into your office for the first time. But I love it when you said that you can't work with everybody. But when I talk to other advisors, especially the ones in the big box retail, they'll take anybody as a client. And you said, Mark, we can't do that because I have to actually serve my clients.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm working some pretty long hours sometimes. People look at a lot of the advisors and see them golfing 3 days a week, and I wish that was me, but it can't.
But you're meeting with people personally.
Yeah, I am, but absolutely, of course. But the difference is that I enjoy the people I work with. And if somebody comes in and I know it's not going to work, we're not going to enjoy each other, honestly, it's time to find another advisor, right? Yeah. Find another,
But you're willing to say that. I'm not sure the big 100%. Box retailers can. They wouldn't even say it, would they?
It's chemistry, man. And if you hang out with people that you enjoy all day long, 12 hours flies by quickly. It's a good time, right? It's kind of like this show. I mean, 30 minutes, it seems like 5 for me. I mean,
it's gone fast though, because it's been fun, but I'm still kind of in awe of the practice and the services you provide. So let me just hit you with a couple of questions. Yeah. Like, I know this goes into a lot of people's heads. Like, they hear different conflicting advice on, let's say, like paying off a mortgage and stuff. But you said, Mark, those are the kind of things that get answered through financial planning. Is that right?
Absolutely. You know, we're in a really crazy environment right now, and some people have some mortgages they're paying 5-6% on, but they're sitting on $100,000 in the checking account that's making 0.1%. So remember, you're paying 4.5 or 5, and you're making 0.5%.
Right.
I mean, it's just a negative. And so sometimes it might make sense to take some of those chips off the table, pay down some of that debt. Sometimes it doesn't. You need to have enough money liquid to write a check for anything that's going to come up.
I love that you would sit down and help build a plan around these conversations, because I think that's what's missing in the advisory world. So many people feel like they have someone, quote, watching their money, but they're not a partner. They don't really understand. And you said, Mark, I don't want to work with someone that doesn't understand their plan. You're very educational. Is that the right word?
Well, you know what? We try to educate our clients as much as possible. And the reality is, a lot of advisors will say, look, I'm getting paid to manage this money. So that's what they watch, right? Our firm looks at the entire picture, whether we're managing it or not. So if somebody has money at the banks, they have mortgages, they have these, you know, real estate properties.
You're taking all that into account.
Yeah, I mean, right now, there's a lot of people that are concerned about selling real estate property right now because they're worried about, they hear about capital gains going away, right?
Sure.
And we're consulting on that. We're showing them the implications of doing it, right? And
it just makes your firm so amazing. It really does.
That's the beauty of the tax office. It gives us an insight that's really hard to achieve without really expensive
tax planning. It's what so many people need but can't find. You know, we're going to run out of time. I can't believe this hour, this 30 minutes has flown by. They need to give us an hour.
Right.
This is really a good show. But listen, I want to open the phone lines one more time. And here's what Stewart has agreed to do for today's listeners. If you'll call this number right now, 833-652-7829. Again, that number, 833-652-7829. Stewart has agreed to actually meet with you personally, not pass you off to somebody else. You're going to sit down in his office with him personally, and he will go over your current financial status, your current financial plan, if you have one. And he'll sit down and go over it as a fiduciary. This is a high-level experience. This is a $1,500 value. And again, he has agreed to give this away absolutely complimentary with no obligations. You do have to do one thing, though. You're going to have to pick up the phone and dial, and that number, 833-652-7829. As we close the show, I personally want to thank you again for having me on. This has been amazing.
Well, you flew a long way to come here, and I appreciate it.
And I'm happy to. I'll tell you, this was great. And for the viewing audience, I hope you found the information useful and helpful, because that's exactly how Stewart intends it, is to learn something from the show. Stewart, I hope to have you back on. I hope you let me come back on, I should say, because I want to come back on. This was an amazing show. Thanks again, and for the offer you made the viewing audience. That's an amazing thing that you'll sit down with them personally. Awesome.
Well, thanks, Mark. Thanks for joining us. I look forward to it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's just flown by. I mean, it was just like the fastest 30 minutes in television as we close.
Well, you know, the nice thing is we have both offices on the East and West Valley, so they're convenient for everybody.
That's awesome.
One in Scottsdale, one in Sun City, Peoria.
And one.